morning, zombies. Are we alive yet? Are we awake yet? How's our sleep deprivation going, and how's our emotional state? This is your zombie Weaver Agency of Rosamond, California. Time index right now is about 10 after midnight. On the West Coast time, it is Monday, the 9th, actually, the Monday, the 8th of January, 2023. Did I say 23? I should have said 24. Okay, right now, I should have been back in bed sleeping right now, but I'm getting tense and excited because today is going back to another 16 weeks of fun with a college course or two. The old fart of 57 is going back in with the rest of the students. But I am up because I am responding to a video that Beau of the fifth column, Mr. Eric, I think. I never quite get his first name right. He's always known as Beau, but moment, guys. The guy's. Oh, that's kind of weird. My computer's still waking up. Justin King. Okay. So Mr. King was talking about in his latest video, sent about a couple hours ago, regarding his intake on science fiction. Being, it's supposed to be difficult. It's wokeness, but it's supposed to be difficult because people are supposed to understand the message. Oh my God. Dude, in order to do science fiction, you have to make it entertaining enough for the pill to be swallowed. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to take the medicine. Haven't you ever heard of Mary Poppins of Disney? A spoonful of sugar helps the medication go down. I suppose he hasn't. Not of a Disney aficionado, apparently. But even with that logic right there, even science fiction has to have it wrapped around something to get the medication down your throat or injected into your brain cells. Cyberpunk, we had necromancy left and right. We've got space like crazy. And when I see my commentator out there of the fifth column, Mr. Justin was trying to wear a Star Trek shirt, trying to show that he's a Trekkie. Really? You're going to be that way about it? Okay. You ever done this one on both hands? I've known a lot of science fiction fans out there who like to talk about what the shows we're talking about. In fact, throughout the decades, in different fan groups left and right and forums, that we've had people talking about the show, the meanings of the show, the author, like crazy, God rest his soul, and his wife, talked about the conventions and talked about other things, how the shows are supposed to be talking about other things. I was born during the year when the show was out. I considered myself as old as Star Trek. Star Trek was older than that. It was supposed to be considered a wagon train to the stars with Horatio Hornblower at the wagon wheel, or on the wagon train going to the stars. That was Gene Roddenberry's vision for it, and how mankind was supposed to be dealing with outside. Okay, but it wasn't just the only show out there, and he was trying to demonstrate something. In fact, he hadn't even demonstrated his age on this one. We had other science fiction magazines. We've had television shows and other science fiction movies. Guy clearly hadn't done his homework. He's trying to look for the political aspect. He's trying to see where he can slide in the wokeness and shit like that to make people think. Well, let him have fun with it. Me, on the other hand, you want to talk about science fiction? Go all out. Go all out on the damn thing. Somewhere in here, I got a lightsaber. My phase is already put away in boxes, took away the power supplies. I don't have a transporter room. I don't even have a model of the Enterprise. I got shirts that are fading out like crazy because I'm wearing them too much. I like wearing shirts, especially when they have the icons of different sorts. They're faded, they're sweat stained, and they're useful, as they are. They should be. I have pins I collect. Some of the pins I got rid of, and other pins I'm trying to recorrect all over again. But if we're talking about throwing a vest and prove my trickiness or my science fictionness, fine. But he probably thinks I've lost all the point about it. And I probably would counter the point saying, well, apparently you didn't dig deep enough because you only give it about 7 or 8 minutes, and you think people that's enough for them to digest. Well, that's you, not me. I've seen shows, I've seen movies, the B flicks that they had. We've had science fiction shows. We had movies coming out. We had books. Back in the late 1800s, we had the Gothic coming out. Prometheus. I'm not talking about the Greek god. I'm talking about Mary Shelley Wollstonecraft's, or just Mary Shelley, if we want to call her that way. Her work regarding the artificially created being out of chemicals and anything else, stitch patchwork, things left and right, made this creature through the weirdness of science that she thought of. She made this gothic tale. What was it? Bram Stoker came out with Dracula. Blood. Don't you understand about the blood? I want your blood. And we had the Wolfman, and we had the other monsters. We had our surrealistic nightmares coming out of our dreams here. We had Invisible Man. We had Creature from the Black Lagoon. Uh, the Prometheus man was the Frankenstein. I kept looking at this guy as a guy needing recovery, in recovery holes left and right, because he demonstrated a perfectly good example of a guy who's making a monster because he's a monster. He's demonstrating his own will. Things like this, if he really wants to go into wokeism, we had that stuff happening back in the 1800s, or even maybe earlier than that. That's when I was really realizing about it. I mean, as I keep telling people, history, 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 history. Literature. I'm studying today. I'm going to go into Shakespeare. It's supposed to be the creme de la creme of English literature, and we are supposed to enunciate and read these stories created by this character named of Shakespeare. Of course, I've had other literature talking about ghettos and river crossings. I've also covered poetry that covered man tearing himself apart left and right because he's got these albatrosses around his neck. But this is what we're covering. Literature. Literature that makes people think. Not just one thing, not just science fiction. It's literature. It's poetry. It's writings, even from the ancient times of Greek and Roman, when we dealt with the bits and pieces of the Library of Alexandria, of how their stories, of how their imaginations were coming across to mankind. We're coming across like the Odyssey. How one man in a country takes his crew and an army across the seas to fight in a war for a decade or more, while his wife, who has a son, being raised by her and by a midwife and other people, trying to grow up to take care of the land. Other suitors trying to horn in on the action of this kingdom that's falling apart. And yet Jason of the Argonauts had to go. And the trip back, he lost all of his Argonauts except for himself and a great Beau. No, the great Beau was still at home. And how he fought off the suitors in his 10-year quest, and it was written in a style that Homer, well, people kept thinking this writer, who the hell's Homer? But he was a prolific writer back in his days. You talk about social commentary, you talk about wokeness, you talk about fighting monsters. You're reading this stuff, and it's like, okay, I don't understand. Well, the monsters are either metaphysical or physical, depending on how you're looking at it. You want to talk about your wokeness? You want to talk about your examples? Then you want to talk about the Dark Ages. You want to talk about empires sacking each other and then destroying the great library of Alexandria. I would have loved to take a look at that stuff. If I could understand ancient Greek, I mean the language itself, I would have been. But just to read the stories to see what they were talking about. About the Olympian gods that we actually had. The Greek gods that then translated into Roman gods. You're talking about your wokeness. You're talking about your science fiction. There it is right there. You're talking about tragedy that are writers trying to hold on to stuff past the Dark Ages and into the Age of Enlightenment, and trying to bring trying to bring the content of that stuff over, despite the fact we actually had science fiction in our biblical texts. We had it in there. For some, they consider it gospel, and other things, the holy texts that we have were considered fiction writing. If you hold it true to your heart, you call it faith. You hold on to it like that. Literature makes one think. See, I have to go beyond what just science fiction is. I have to go on the compass. I have to go encompassing this. I love science fiction. Don't get me wrong. I grew up with science. I grew up with science fiction. I heard about religion. And the thing is, the religion is based upon a belief that there is life after death. Well, hell, at the age of 4 years old, I can certainly attest to that. And to me, it was terrifying as hell at a 4-year-old's age, trying to fight for survival as his heart's being worked on for a heart operation. In one form, that's considered science fiction. Open heart surgery, keeping the kid alive so they can repair his valves, that's considered science fiction, otherwise known as history. Break the word down. History. His story. Could have been her story, or history. But no, it's history. History. If there was another S in there, probably for misspelling, but what the hell? His story. Broke those two words down. His space story. What are we doing? We are telling. We are examining. We are engaging in. So, not just science fiction, not just doing the Star Trek crap or wearing the shirts like crazy or saying Star Wars and it's metaphysical, if we want to get into that damn crap. We've had other stories out there that had challenged us. How about Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? Oceanography. Oceanography and science fiction together. This magical, mystical metal sub that does wonders of underneath the sea. Wonders, hell, it's just traveling because it's got some kind of weird ass nuclear power engine. That's what we kept assuming every time we kept looking at the book, reading it like crazy. And we were seeing this. We're seeing this live on screen. Disney did a wonderful job of making this fish with a nose that rammed right into ships left and right. And every time you had to do a repair job on the thing. That kind of tells you the limitations of man's science right there. But even in science fiction, there's only so much limitations that you can put into it. Show the realistic. Now I said before, science fiction is also in biblical literature. What was it in Ezekiel that they were talking about this alien that come out, or these aliens that came out and with multiple body parts of sorts, wings and heads of different things. And Ezekiel seeing this thing, and it's like, oh, I'm reading this when I was a kid. I'm like, what the hell? And people took this literal. They took it for real. And yet some people are like, but. I'm like, give me a break. I can understand about God. I can understand about Jesus. I can understand about the powers beyond ourselves. Because having touched that damn power, having gone through the experience, makes me, well, scared as hell as life and death. But I'm not skull thumping on anybody to say believe in this because I've been through it. No. You got to go through the experience yourself and survive it if you can, if you're allowed, if it's fated, and then try to understand it in your own point of view. Adults is one thing, but a kid is a different story altogether. Where the kid has to grow up. That's a science fiction story in there somewhere, or a fantasy story about that one. Growing up through life. Well, we kept thinking about science fiction because we need to see the technology, we need to see the fantasy, we need to see. Well, the thing is, the kid survived a open heart surgery at the age of 4 years old with medical technology limited still during those days. And it was rumored that a kid wasn't supposed to deal with that kind of surgery and live, but he did. So now he tells a story about his life. In a way, that's either science or it's fiction. Could be science fiction, at least back then anyway. So a kid sticks his nose in the books of science fiction and still dreams about space. He watches shows about space travel. He watches news programs about space travel, about science happening at this point over here. He experiences science at work when it comes down for earthquakes. Scares the hell out of him. Well, why not? We had earthquake movies. We had earthquake stories a lot. We made them into movies. We made them into different things. But yeah, then we're talking about the good versus evil stuff. The Bible says, yeah, well, we also translated it out into science fiction shows, now didn't we? And thus we created our own Bible of sorts. A cosmos is full of good people and bad people according to our own damn point of views. Is it wokeness? Is it political? I don't know, you tell me. When Gene Roddenberry created science fiction, not science fiction, but he created his own show, he was telling people about his own viewpoint. Yes, probably wokeness. About an intergalactic group of planets and systems calling themselves the Federation of Planets and having exploratory unit out there called Starfleet going out there to explore the universe around them, solving problems. They have different planets with different races, different beings on their ships. Because of budgets, they can only afford so many aliens, including alien cast members. With special effects limited, they can only go so far. And everybody speaks the language. Everybody speaks one language. Budgets. Think about that one. So, we got same time growing up, a guy named Lucas, George Lucas. He comes up because he wants the good versus evil kind. Is that considered wokeness? People outside the wokeness situation are pushing that down people's throats. This is woke. This is woke. Why about the good versus evil? Star Wars. Okay, who's the Empire? Well, they're the guys in the Empire. We're Luke Skywalker. We're the rebels. But we want things forced down people's throats. Are you really wanting that? Yes, I think it's cool. Swing a lightsaber around, beat people up with it. Kind of sounds like you're the Empire. But then again, didn't you learn this in your history book? Ah, history sucks. Bible, well, I don't know. It's Christian. It's supposed to be Christian, you know. Christian, we're supposed to beat people up. Love your neighbor while you beat the living crap out of them. So they take and write and screw up literature left and right on that one. The Bible is supposed to be a moralistic book, basically. A history and a moralistic book. The first chapter, the first portion of the Old Testament is supposed to be telling you about morals. But then again, the second book, also, the New Testament is supposed to be talking about morals as well. And a little bit of history. What happened after a cult following explodes in a Roman Empire. Now, we could talk about that being science fiction if they had science fiction elements in it. If they actually had any fiction elements, except we're talking about the Roman Empire was a realistic empire. They had cruelty, they had swordplay, they had lions eating people up or starved them to death. They craved human flesh or tear them apart just for the fun of it. But we had Romans influencing their will, their way of Sharia law, if you want to talk about that. Them worshiping the emperor as the god. Of course, you had a different government system during that time. Was that considered fiction or science fiction? That was reality check right there. So we have that going on, boys and girls. Gets even harsher, doesn't it? But we had that going on when we had, well, we didn't have the Roman Empire going on when Moses came into view. We had the Egyptian Empire and a few other countries having empires in the Middle East. I think Babylonian was in there, Thessalonian. Uh, Different empires left and right out there, trying to fight for survival, trying to fight for expansion, trying to fight to keep their own kingdoms going. And they had their own versions of God and goddesses. Is that considered science fiction? In a way, it is, because we're dealing with creatures with different powers and abilities that they kept praying to, worshiping. Is religion science fiction? But Justin King, in his guise of Beau of the fifth column, was trying to say something according to our own lines here. And I'm reaching out to history because he keeps forgetting about it. And being a journalist, he wants to keep it short and sweet, not blathering on a storm concerning about things. And I do multi parts of my videos. He wants to tell people about how to look at things. Well, you got to look at bigger pictures instead of a little caption here, because I had to keep telling this guy. I know he's trying to focus on this one. Just focus on this one. I'm like, screw that noise. Watch this. Get the get the full effect on this one. We can put Star Wars on a large flat screen inside a movie theater and blast people out. We can also do that to other movies left and right, including Star Trek. We also do that to Avatar. We've done that to Outline. We've done that to many, 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 many films, including the ones who were precursored Star Trek and Star Wars. I'm not talking about Space 2001: Space Odyssey. Creature of the Black Lagoon. Or the monster films. The Blob. You want to do wokeness on that one? A blob that comes from the alien, from outer space. I kept wondering about this one. How did this creature fly through space, end up on Earth? Except he was in a meteor. Okay, why was he in a meteor? Something happened to the planet where this blob was from. Blew up or something. Maybe crashed or something like that. I mean, it was questions beforehand that you didn't ask about. You just had to accept that you had this monster coming over here, eating people up, gets frozen to death, and stuck in the Antarctic. and it's still there until you have other movies to remake the Blob. Comes back out and starts killing people left and right. I can understand if the Blob came in machines and traveled from one place to another place, or if it just did not devour people, just used people to do what you got to do to get from one place to another place. But how did the Blob, this 1950 something movie with Steve McQueen in it, and a cast of characters being eaten alive by being enveloped by gelatin, gelatin. I mean, I'll give you nightmares right there. How did that thing get at the Earth? How? Why? Questions. Justin was trying to make a point concerning about how how painful it is, how hurtful it is in a way, how hard it is to accept science fiction or to learn science fiction or something about science fiction is hard. No, you just put imagination to the damn thing. That's all. Or is imagination considered wokeness? Should we do a part two on this one? I think so because trying to keep it on our time a little bit here.